Welcome to tonight's forum featuring 4 candidates for 2 open seats on the Hanson Board of Selectmen. Candidates on the ballot are Don Howard, candidate for re-election, Wes Bloss, Matt Dyer, and Joseph Weeks. I'm Bob Hayes and I'll be your moderator for tonight's forum. Isn't it fabulous that we have 4 candidates, all qualified, more than qualified, that have interest in being on the Hanson Board of Selectmen? It's great because it gives the voters a choice. So ladies and gentlemen, as we move forward with tonight's forum, you're going to hear from these 4 candidates. We're going to ask them some questions that were compiled by Whitman Hanson Community Access, and you're going to have the opportunity to see and hear their answers and make your decision for the up and coming election, which is on the 19th. Your voting place has changed this year. It's at Hanson Middle School. The voting opens at 10 a.m. and closes at 5 p.m. So at 5 p.m. on Saturday night, you will know who the candidates are for the Board of Selectmen. So thank all 4 of you for coming. It's a pleasure to have you. As I said, you're all well qualified. Personally, I couldn't be more proud of any one of the 4 of you because I think you're all great. So we're going to move forward.
Thank you.
Opening statements. We drew numbers so we could be fair for opening statements. So anyone that's watching can understand this is completely unbiased. Matt, you drew number 1, so you're up.
Sure. So thank you very much for hosting tonight. As he said, my name is Matthew Dyer. I am running for selectman here in Hanson. Having grown up here in the town and been able to travel the country, serving as a national park ranger out in Missouri and up in Maine, it's so nice to be able to come back to my hometown of Hanson and continue making a difference in our community. And I hope to serve you as selectman here in Hanson. Thank you.
And number 2 is Mr. Howard.
Good evening, everyone. Well, I was just thinking it's a 5th time that I'm running for selectman in the town of Hanson. I ran for 1 year and 3 years, and now this is the 5th year. I've been in Hanson. I built my house in 1960 with Claire and my wife. And I've enjoyed being a selectman. I'm on 5 different committees, but that's just beside the point. And I enjoy working for the taxpayer of the town of Hanson. Thank you much, Lee.
And next up is Joe Weeks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joe Weeks, and I really appreciate WHCA and the candidates here for coming and doing this. I'm really passionate about Hanson. I have a wife and 3 beautiful children at home, Elizabeth, Reagan, Kennedy, and I just really want to do well for this town. I've served on the Capital Improvement Committee for the past 7 years, might be 8, I always get that confused. I've been on the Housing Authority for 6 years now, and I've been the chair of that for the past year, and I've been on the Planning Board for 5 years, just ended, my last meeting was the other day, and I've been the chair of that for 2 years. I really want to represent the town in a way that is mindful, based off of planning and this idea of fiscal conservative, and I want to make sure that your tax money goes to the right places. I want to best represent you, and I appreciate and I hope to earn your vote on May 19th. Thank you.
And Mr. Bloss.
Hi, and Bob, thank you. Thank you all you guys for letting us do this. My name is Wes Bloss. I too am running for the Board of Selectmen. I have basically been in Hanson my entire life. I've taught for 40 years in the Hanson school system, married my wife, a colleague and fellow teacher there, put my son through the school system together. We're all educators. We are environmentally interested, and I have served more years than I can really think about on the Recreation Commission, volunteering. I've reached 67. I've never run for an elected position, and it just seemed like the time had come to throw the hat in the ring and give something a try that I hadn't, so that you just keep learning and growing, hopefully. So, thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, first question is, and seeing as Wes went last, we're going to let him go first this time. The Board of Selectmen has seen its share of tough times, working together or retaining the public's trust. How do you see this board functioning if you're elected?
I really do believe that being open is key to keeping the public's trust. So if we can conduct business on a biweekly basis and just be transparent as to what's going on with the business in town, I think we will gain the public's trust. We don't have to vote the way everyone in town wants. I think we're a fractured, divided town at the moment, and it's difficult to make everybody happy. But if everybody can listen to us, listen to the debates, listen to both sides of the issue, and follow our reasons for the votes we take, as long as the votes are made in public, not rushed or hushed, I think the public will regain their trust. I'm not sure if the public has lost its trust at this point, but it's like to make sure we continue to keep open government.
Thank you, Wes. Joe?
Yeah, I think if I'm lucky enough and fortunate enough to get elected to the Board of Selectmen, I think that I would be mindful of trying to bring people together. I think it's something that I've been really adamant at trying to do on the years of the Capital Improvement Committee and the Planning Board in particular. We have all different types of people on the different mindsets, different political spectrums, and we're able to bring that together. And I'm hoping to bring that to the Board of Selectmen. I'm fortunate enough that I've received the endorsement of both Jim McGann and Kenny Mitchell recently, and those are people that I have had both positive relationships with and negative ones. We've had differences of opinions. We felt good, and I feel like I have a decent working relationship with my friend Don down there, as well as Laura and Jim. So I feel like we can work together. We have worked together, and I've brought plenty of different programs and projects to the Board of Selectmen already. So we already have a good footing on where we can kind of take our relationship. As far as the people go, I'm all about bringing folks together. I want to make sure that that people are equally represented and that everybody's voice is heard. So thank you.
Okay, Don?
This is my 10th year as being selectman, and I've always taught to be honest with everybody in town. Communication is one of the best things in the world. We found out that the taxation in town is all derived because of the bedroom community which the town of Hanson is. And working with the town accountant, the treasurer, on all the issues that come up through the different years, the taxation is supplied by all the residents in town because we don't have any industry. And so that the industry pays the same tax rate that the town residents pay. It's too bad we have to work it that way, but to be honest with you, I think it's very good because the taxpayers themselves know what they're getting. All right, thank you.
And Matt?
Sure. So we all grew up in school with the idea government's here to work for you in a very responsible way, in an honest way, and in a transparent way. How I envision myself on the board is having a conversation with everyone, just not one person and just not one side of the story. Having grown up and being on both sides of the law, it has been something that I realize there's always two stories, and you have to talk to everyone, just not one side. And also talk with different department heads as well and try to figure out the whole story and make the best decision from there.
Okay. Second question. Hanson is one of the few communities to be considering adult recreational marijuana sales. If you could have your say, where would you put or think that the best spot in the town of Hanson would be for that industry? Matt, we're going to go right to you, seeing as you went last time.
Sure. So with recreational marijuana, one of the bigger concerns for our law enforcement are people behind the wheel under the influence. I would propose that we would put it down on Main Street where users could utilize public transportation, such as the train, but also make sure that we have other means of transportation, such as Uber and Lyft, and a nice walkable downtown too. So people could utilize sidewalks as well as public transit. So that's where I would propose it.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. One that I was directly involved in, so I can appreciate it, and I had some say in it already. So I think the idea is, you know, when as chair of the planning board, we had the opportunity via the Board of Selectmen as well as the town hall just in general to help zone these issues. We had a hand in the recreational, the cultivation, and the moratorium, and we did our best to represent the town in its best interest. In doing so, we've held multiple public hearings regarding this over the years. And we've also got the input of the police chief, who was very helpful in helping us navigate this. And I think I've said in a previous forum that we had a different zone altogether. And as a result of the culmination, the collaboration, working with the townspeople, department heads and whatnot, we created these zones up on Main Street and up to Mattakesett Street that we felt as a board was appropriate to present to the town. And as you know, at the last town meeting, it was voted on. So, you know, I think that that's where I would put it based off of my experience in that particular role. Thank you.
Thank you. Wes?
Well, exactly. We had a near unanimous vote at town meeting, so I think the zoning was appropriate. Personally, I hesitate to see a group of citizens wandering around with pot, but if when we put it on a ballot, I assume next year, if that's what the town says we're going to do, then we're going to do. I would not change the zoning in any way. I think with Chief Mix and with the planning board and everyone involved, that they came up with the best possible solution, and in the end, I'm not clear that it's going to be the Board of Selectmen who are going to say you can put it in that building. It's going to be up to the people who come in and make their proposals. This is where we want it, and then we decide from the proposals we get. That would be my guess.
Thank you. Dawn?
Well, I agree with Wes, too. I agree with everybody here. The best location would be along Main Street some point in time because of the fact it's farthest away from any school that it is in town. Originally, I didn't vote for it. I was surprised that it was passed in Hanson. But now that we have it, we have to cope with it. And the best place possible would be along Main Street someplace, or working with the chief of police and the planning board like they've done. I think will be the best place for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Joe, we're going to start with you this time.
Fantastic.
What are some of the ways the town can increase its tax base and alleviate some of the financial burdens on the citizens?
That's a fantastic question. So there's a couple things we can do. I mean, you know, Hanson in general is a bedroom community, and it's something that I personally take pride in, but doesn't mean that we should necessarily keep it that way. We got to be business-friendly town as well. So I think that by dressing up, things like Main Street in particular would be incredibly helpful. Working with the owners of the Cranberry Building, for example, I've been fortunate enough to have some conversations with them in the past to see what that's like. Unfortunate, though, that it's a private building, so you can't do much with that. But you can try to negotiate, and I feel like I have a good footing on where these people are and what we can do. So I like to dress that up. Beautify the area, work on the Complete Streets projects to get as many sidewalks, make the town walkable as we possibly can, get the bike racks in there from the MBTA. I've been trying to do that for a while. As well as try to work on High Street. If we focus on our conservation, which makes us special, and we turn that into a park, which is what I'm really hoping we do, it's a good attraction for people, as well as, you know, focus on things like Camp Kiwanee, which everybody on the South Shore comes to for recreation and all kinds of activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Exactly what Joe was just saying is we need some sort of attraction as an anchor, because right now we're just a drive-through community. And people just keep on going. They're not going to stop unless there's a reason to. And I believe that an attraction, such as maybe building a beautiful boardwalk out to Burridge, would help bring in some users from outside and make people stop and enjoy what we have and what we're most proud of, which is our conservation. Also, that we should also look into TIFs and maybe some other economic benefits and work with our partners over at Old Colony Planning, as they have some good ideas of which direction we should go.
Dawn?
It's a hard thing because when I came on the board 10 years ago, it was a bedroom community. But we did have a few industrial outfits up there off of Pleasant Street that were here. And the businesses seem to leave town. I don't know why, but I think it's possibly that there's no main road that comes into and out of Hanson, and it's a big thing in transportation today. So I think basically, my own honest opinion, I think Hanson will be a bedroom community, and it's going to be hard to get some industry other than the restaurants that are in town. Thank you.
The highway department issue seems to be something that's coming to fruition and going to be brought to the town of Hanson. They have picked a site on Hawks Avenue, I believe, and there is a committee that's been impaneled, and there's people on both sides of that question of where the highway department should be. Should it be on Hawks Avenue? Should we rebuild the current situation? Should we continue on? Matt, would you like to start?
Sure. I believe that we should have an open conversation about putting it down on Hawks Avenue. I believe that we should be really looking at these studies, whether or not Hawks Avenue is contaminated, and if so, what is it going to take to get past that level? I know people say that there's been studies, but it's really time to look at it. It's kind of hard to find those reports, but I think it should be an open discussion. I think we need to address the needs of our highway department because what we have for infrastructure is falling apart, and we need to make sure that our departments are taken care of.
Wes?
I don't have a strong opinion on either site. I think until I make it onto the Board of Selectmen, let's pretend, and have more information. The Hawks Avenue site seems reasonable, and it gives us room to expand, whereas Indian Head Street I don't think has room to expand at this point. So I think that's an advantage in its favor. Obviously, as Matt said, the infrastructure at Indian Head Street really is deteriorating badly enough, so it needs to be replaced one way or another. In the end, I think which one's going to be more cost effective, and that's it. I won't know. I won't have a real opinion until I have more facts.
Thank you. Dawn?
That's a good question. I'm in favor of changing the the highway ban down to Hawks Avenue for the simple fact I worked in Hanover for many years, and they were behind the town hall in Hanover. But they found a location over in the fireworks that was on the southern side of Hanover, which turned out to work out fine. And I think Hanson Highway Department needs more land to work with, and especially having the 3 acres down there. I think it's a good possibility, and they've got 2 good buildings that they can work from, and I think everything will work out fine. I really do.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, so I'm a very strong proponent of our highway department. I think all the folks down there do a fantastic job. Irrespective of that, though, I think that the building down on Indian Head Street there, those were surplus buildings when they came in anyways. They were old when we got them, and they've only been deteriorating as a result of storing the salts and all the moving trucks. So it's become a safety hazard. And I remember a few years ago they came to the Capital Improvement Committee asking about what we can do, and we didn't have the funds at the time. But it's something that we're pretty strongly, well, I'm pretty strongly for. I would say though that we have to make sure that the land at Hawks Ave isn't contaminated, that there's nothing leached in there, that it is actually the way it's supposed to be. And if we are going to make a decision on this, we got to be mindful because we don't want to have to raise taxes to a point where again we're taxing people out of the community. It's going to be a large expense unless we get creative with some ways of funding it, which I know I'm not going to have enough time based on the cards here to go into that. But based off of that, we need to make sure that if we're going to do it, we got to do it sooner than later because costs only rise, and we got to get things like electricity out there and other amenities to make sure it actually works if we're going to go that route.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. The Camp Quaney investigation was a hot issue a couple of years ago. What are your thoughts on the outcome, and does more need to be done since the investigation concluded? Does everybody get that question? It's kind of straight up, but it's a little bit, and I'll repeat it. The Camp Quaney investigation was a hot issue a couple of years ago, and I think it still remains to be a hot issue. What are your thoughts on the outcome, and does more need to be done since the investigation was concluded? Wes?
As far as I'm concerned, if the Camp Kiwanee is used for recreation and a community center, then it's fulfilling its purpose. We bought it back in, I forget when we bought it, 79, for recreation and a community center. And as far as I know, we have now hired a recreation director. I mean, the commission is moving in that direction to try to offer it. As long as the weddings and the rentals are used to subsidize recreation for the community, then I think we're in a good position. We are moving forward.
Dawn?
No, I agree with Wes wholeheartedly. I think it's working out fine. It's a great income for the town of Hanson, and they are running on their own enterprise fund. And I think eventually it'll become effect that all the monies that will be granted there will be worked out and worked there once they get everything straightened out at Camp Kiwanee.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, I just had the luxury of helping out, try to clean the place up this past Saturday, which was a lot of fun. I think the rec commission down there is doing a great job. I think that the employees down there are doing a fantastic job. I tend to think that, as going back to an earlier statement I had made, the idea is that we don't want to lose the essence of what Camp Kiwanee is, and it was a recreational center. So it's all fine and dandy to try to, have it be run like a business and make a profit off of it. But if you do that, then you run the chance of losing the essence of what it actually is. And we want to be able to be mindful that it's there for the community, to be able to provide for weddings and all that. That's fine, but a lot of the things that we do for our residents comes out of Camp Kiwanee, and we want to make sure that regardless of what route anybody goes, we don't want to lose what Camp Kiwanee is. So things have to be affordable. It should be used for recreation. Subsidizing it with the weddings and all that stuff is fantastic, but Camp Kiwanee is a gem for Hanson, and we want to make sure that it stays up and running and it's used appropriately.
Matt?
Sure. I believe it's time for Hanson to move on. The investigation's in its past. We have a new director up there. Josh is doing a great job of trying to get public input about what kind of programming should be up there, but also throughout the city, throughout the town of Hanson. And I believe it's just time to move on. Camp Kiwanee is a great spot, as everyone just mentioned. I'm not going to harp on that, but there is also a good balance between business and funding what we can really do up there and provide good recreational opportunities for all ages.
Okay. As you know, we were all at town meeting, and the town voted to ease the restrictions on where we put cell towers in the town of Hanson. There was a pretty lively debate. It got animated at times, to say the least. The restrictions seem to be eased, as I understand it, to it could be put on a maybe residential piece. It could possibly be put on a commercial piece. It could even be put at Hanson Middle School. What are your thoughts? Joe?
Yeah, again, this is another one of those things that, being on the planning board, I had the luxury of being able to have some real direct say in this. So, when we had the opportunity to try to solve the problem of cell service in the town, we jumped on it and we wanted to make sure we did it right. So I think the flexibility that that bylaw has allowed opens us up to all kinds of opportunities to put a cell tower there. Now, again, I want to be clear that the restrictions and all of letting abutters know and the whole 9 yards, and everything has to be approved at a 2/3 vote at a town meeting, regardless of what site is picked. So there's plenty of checks and balances in place. It just opens up the flexibility. I did read in the paper today that we do have a site proposal at Hanson Middle School, so we'll see where it's located. I feel that you can't make a decision on these things before you actually have the facts, like the mapping, the zoning, what that's going to look like. So it's hard to say where it should go or shouldn't go without actually having a proposal right in front of you. But I wouldn't cross anything off the table. You just got to make the decisions as they come to you.
Dawn?
No, I agree with Joe on it. I think it ought to be brought up to the residents of the town too also. I think it should be on town property for the simple reason it's a way of getting income that can be well used within the town. And so the proposal for it, if it's up there, and if everybody goes along with it and everybody figures out the radio waves and so forth, what's going on, it's fine. But let's make it safe to begin with.
Okay, Matt.
Absolutely. At this point, everyone is glued to their phones, and cell phone service is now what I consider a public utility, where people need it to survive in the 21st century. A lot of people are cutting the cord to their landlines. I believe that easing the restrictions is the right step in the right direction, and I agree with Don and Joe about putting on municipal properties, as it could bring in more income. And there is a process that we have to go through and get public opinion and talk with folks about the pros and cons. But overall, I think it's a step in the right direction, especially of attracting more businesses to the town of Hanson.
Wes.
I have nothing intelligent to add to that. I guess I would say go Hanson Middle, which is the first time I heard it was like, yes, I think that makes perfect sense. For pretty centrally located, and the town will decide in a town meeting anyway. So,
Okay, to go along with phone service, it seems like phone service and internet has proposed another problem for towns. We have people on social media. It's been brought up at selectmen's meeting by previous selectmen that we should ban all elected officials for using social media, for texting, for tweeting, for what, I mean, there's so many different ways for posting, because we do get, as they call them, keyboard warriors. What are your thoughts on that? We'll start with Matt. Seeing as you're the youngest of the group and probably the most social media one.
Actually, I don't have a personal Facebook page or anything like that. So unfortunately, that ideology is wrong. But nonetheless, as a state employee who's trying to implement a program and trying to get doing public outreach, get people involved in my program over in Brockton, I feel so restrained in my position. And I feel that there should be guidelines with elected officials and departments for using social media. Obviously, you know, making sure that it's for the public good. It's not controversial. If you want to try to spread information, I believe that social media has its place. But obviously, as you said, there are those people that feel very comfortable behind the keyboard, and the policy simply should be do not engage with anyone that's trying to cause waves. So with that, that's where I stand on that.
Thank you. Wes.
do not engage. I do think, I'm not sure that we can say, no, elected officials are not allowed to use public social media. I think that would be restricting a certain right that we all have as American citizens. But I do think guidelines are appropriate. I'm just not sure if the guidelines can be enforced. I don't know how that works. Personally, I just do not engage with social media. It's just, you know, maintain a dignified silence and move forward.
Don.
I'm not online in the house anyway, so the only thing I have is my telephone, and I think after 10 years, I think if anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can always call my telephone, and there's an answering machine there. So I'm not even involved in the online business, all right?
And Joe?
I think dignified silence is probably the best way to put it. So I agree with you on that one. I think the idea is it's a slippery slope. You have this idea of the First Amendment rights, right? So, I mean, there's only so much you can do. But at the end of the day, you have to use it as a medium for disseminating information that's appropriate for informing the public. I think that a lot of people use social media as a means of getting information. So I think it can be a useful tool at times. But I think that, you know, policies and procedures are pretty useful. I'm the president of the American Mental Councils Association, and one of the first things we did was we had to institute a social media policy because board members can sometimes put things out there that are a little bit difficult, and then if you put something out there and then you have to hover over it all the time to see, and it tempts people to say something, and then you get into this debate, and it's just not productive for what people are trying to do. So it's a very tough thing to regulate, but I think that policies and procedures are important. But dignified silence, I think, is the best way to kind of go about that.
Okay. The next one in question is about Plymouth County Hospital. We were all at town meeting, and Plymouth County Hospital was discussed. By the way, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank everyone on the Plymouth County Hospital Reuse Committee. In fact, it was even mentioned it might be the final Reuse Committee, and that's been going on in the town of Hanson for 20 years. So for all those people that are watching, thank you. But It's been talked about, and we've got a parcel, and they're gathering ideas. What's your thoughts, Wes?
I thought we had a very productive meeting at the Hanson Middle School cafeteria. Basically, I believe it's going to end up being maintained by the highway department. I think our highway department does a great job and probably is stretched about to the limit of their capacity. So as far as I'm concerned, a big green park with a lot of grass that only has to be mowed, and we pray that volunteers will come in from time to time and pick up the trash that is dumped around there and keep it simple. The Historical Society is planning, hopefully, to move their 3 buildings up there eventually. So we'll have a little mini Sturbridge Village in one corner, and then we'll have a huge green expanse. And if we want any kind of amphitheater, it's just sit on the grass, look at the performers, and keep it simple. And let the trails go through. I mean, for the Bay Circuit path and stuff, of course, that's huge that it is able to cut through the property. But don't do something that is going to require huge maintenance.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to add to that. I think that one of the things that we have for an opportunity is to really kind of dress up that area if we chose to, but it always comes back to who's going to be in charge of it, who's going to maintain it. And I think that the highway department is going to be the ones that are going to be going down and looking at that. So you got to be mindful of that as well. And again, it always goes back to when you have these great ideas, these great projects, does it raise taxes to a point where it's not sustainable? And I think that that's the important piece here. It's great, all the ideas. I like the amphitheater idea. I like the trails, the walking trails. I like a place where we can have, outdoor movies and things along those lines. I think it's great. But we have to be mindful that, whatever we put in there has the potential to raise taxes pretty high for some folks. So, I want to be mindful of that. I'm not for businesses going down there or development because it doesn't perk very well. So I don't think putting developments down there is actually the best idea. But with that being said, you don't want to count on any ideas until you actually see some plans in front of you. But I'm not leaning that way really. I think that a good open space might be beneficial. Some parks, something that we can use as a town to be proud of.
Thank you, Dawn.
Depending what goes up there, whether it be a park, well, I hope it's a park. But if it is, I think it's a good point in time that probably the highway department can always use an extra man. And I think point in time, if it does go up there and be a park, there'll have to be somebody hired to take care of it during the summertime. But that also would give the highway department an extra person that they could use in the wintertime, because it's cheaper to have an employee working for the town, plowing and sanding for the town, than it is to hire an outside contractor. So in the long run, I think it would be cheaper to have a person hired to work up there in the summer and in turn work for the winter for the highway department and give an extra hand.
Okay, Matt.
My personal belief is that we need to look at Hanson holistically. We have to look at the entire scope and then allocate the resources where we feel that is fit. Do we want to pour money into Plymouth County Hospital, or do we want to pour money into revitalizing Main Street, or do we want to pour money into another facility? But I believe that we should have a conversation about what we should do. But in the grand scheme of Plymouth County Hospital, I hope it does become a park, exactly what Wes said. Trails, open space, and a mini Sturbridge Village, and life is good.
Okay. We have a transfer station in town, and sometime back, and I can't recall the exact dates, maybe a couple of years, maybe one of you can correct me, I think it was a couple of years ago, we went to pay-as-you-throw. Mm-hmm. Pay-as-you-throw doesn't seem like at present time, from what I've heard of the numbers, a lot of people have gone to private trash haulers, and it may be costing the town money. What is your theory on the transfer station, Dawn?
Well, being somebody that was on the Board of Health back in the late, what was the 60s, we were ordered by the state or mandated by the state that we do something about the open burning at the transfer station. And that's when it was started. And I'm one of two other members that were on the board at the time. And at the time, our budget went from, I think, $10,000 to $42,000 the following year by having a transfer station. But as it worked out good for many, many, many years. The problem now is there's so many people that are paying to have their trash taken away that the transfer station isn't, or they aren't getting the bags bought to supply the income. Myself personally, I do it twice a week. It's cost me around $5 every 3 months to buy the bags, and twice a week is just simple for me. I don't understand why people are spending the money to have their trash picked up at the household.
Okay, thank you. Wes?
As Don said, I spend $1.25 a week for one orange bag, and that one orange bag, I've said before, is such a great visual as Joanne and I fill it 3 days after I've taken my dump run. We're going, all that trash, what can we recycle? What can we recycle? So I don't have any figures. I have heard both sides. I have heard people on the Board of Health telling me that no, really, that it will be sustainable down the road, that we can make it work. I've also had people telling me that it's going down the tubes, that we're about to lose it. So at this point, I don't know. But I personally am a strong advocate of the transfer station and pay as you throw. I don't understand realistically, although I'm retired and have all the time in the world, so why, I mean, but then of course I taught for 40 years and still went to the transfer station every week. So I still was able to put that into my busy schedule, so I'm not sure why we pay so much more money to have someone pick it up.
Matt? Thank you, Wes.
Sure. So with pay as you throw, you know, I'm always open to having a discussion, a communal discussion on what people want to do. I've heard both sides, the inconvenience of having to pick up bags, but I agree with Don and Wes. It's only $1.25 per week if you fill up a bag, and that's not bad. But I think part of it too is society has changed to the point where people are, quote, too busy to go to the dump, and that they think it's just more convenient to pay $30 a month to have the trash hauled away than pay, you know, $5 a month for pay as you throw.
Joe? Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, you know, that's another difficult question, because it's one of those things that, you know, we really got to be mindful of as if we're looking at Hanson in a holistic way. You know, I think that, you know, I agree with everybody here that the bags are, you know, they're cheap enough, but why aren't people using them? I don't think the answer is necessarily why. The answer is, well, because they're not using them, what are we going to do about that? So we did create this enterprise fund that was supposed to be self-sustaining to pay for the transfer station, but that hasn't rung true. People are choosing a more convenient way from their perspective, which is having curbside pickup at this point. And they're paying absorbent more prices, but that's where we're at right now. So the idea is that, you know, I think at the last town meeting we did allocate funds to help out with the enterprise fund to help the balance. And I think that we got to be mindful of that moving forward, because that is taxpayer money going into something that's supposed to be sustainable. So I'd like to have the opportunity to really look at the transfer station and find new ways to get people to incentivize people to do that. Or just look at the structure of the transfer station in general, because it's really important that we do that. It's taxpayer money.
Okay, thank you all. We have a newly voted recall law. Just voted in town meeting a week or two ago. I hate to date when we did this, but it was a week or two ago. And there was a huge discussion. It was Article 32. Are you in favor of the newly passed recall law? Joe, you went last, so you can go first.
Yeah, so I'm not against trying to find a way to make things a little bit more specific, but I'm not necessarily for the law as it's written now. In fact, when I spoke to Jim after the town meeting, I told him a bunch of different issues that I had with it. One of the main ones being that there's a piece in there that basically says that if you are someone that is involuntarily hospitalized for a mental disorder, that somehow that disqualifies you for office, and someone that is in the mental health field, that just perpetuates the stigma for mental health just in general. I don't think that someone that's going through a tough time that gets hospitalized for whatever reason should have that kind of publicly out there. So I think that's a big thing for me, and you know, Jim was okay with hearing that, and I think that we're going to have future conversations about this moving forward. But I think the recall law in general is just a very difficult topic. I'm glad the discussion was held though, but that's kind of where I stand with that.
Matt?
Sure, I'm against Article 32. I believe that it kind of takes away the voters' rights to be able to recall someone for whatever reason. If they're nasty online, you know, going back to our social media conversation, if they're nasty online, they should be able to be recalled, or if they don't represent you, sure. And I thought the way that it was presented at Town Hall, it was one person. All it takes is one person and you're out. But that's not the case where you had to go get signatures from each precinct and then have a referendum on whether or not you wanted to vote the person in or out. So I believe that was wrong. I thought it took away rights from the Hanson voters.
Wes?
I am against the recall amendment, but it doesn't matter because it's now a town bylaw. So that's what we have to deal with. I will not be recalled, I guess, when it comes down to it. No one's going to find a guilty in a criminal court, and I'm not admitting to anything. And I suppose, as I had said at the beginning, I remember a situation where a town employee was terminated for sexual harassment without being convicted and without admitting to anything. And in the Me Too era, it just seems to me, well, we've just taken that away because if it can't get through the court system in the time that you're in office, I don't see any recall on the people involved making the accusation. So I'm against it, but it is what it is, and I think the four of us can feel very safe that all four of us will make it to the end of our terms without being recalled.
Don?
I agree with it, the way it was implemented, and it's something that, depending upon the person and what it's called for, that's what it is. And I just go along with what's happening, and if somebody does something wrong in town, I just believe it should be done quickly and not hesitate and drag it out too long.
Okay. It's been said that town meetings may have outlived their usefulness, considered the amount of people that come for quorums. I know some towns are lessening the quorums, and people are frustrated with the fact that 100 people come to run a town with 7,000 voters. How do we get it? How do we change it, format it, thoughts on it, to attract more people to come and vote on a budget that's in the millions and millions of dollars? How do we do that? Matt?
Absolutely. When I lived up in Maine, it was kind of a really neat experience when I went to town meetings up there. They made it into a potluck where after the fact, you went over into the cafeteria, you grabbed some food, you broke bread with neighbors that you don't really get to break bread with. I believe that also, too, that we need to make sure that people understand and they don't feel any reservation of going why they can't go because they're just not educated or whatever the case may be. And then the third thing is childcare. Parents don't want to hire a sitter to go sit in a meeting that's long and drawn out. So, yeah.
Okay, Dawn?
No, I'm very pleased at the way the town meetings are run. At one point in time, I tried to get it reduced to 50 because we weren't getting quorum to do a town meeting. But that was thrown out and went back to 100. I think today I agree with that. There's a lot of young couples in Hanson that have younger children, and it's hard for them to come out. Plus the sports are going on today and everything that's going on that way. So, but the people that do come to the town are interested in the town, and they vote the way they should vote. They have the choice, and I don't think they have any rebuttal from the other residents because the people that aren't coming would come if they thought it wasn't running properly.
Joe?
I personally, I love town meeting. I look forward to it. I'm one of those people that actually enjoys it. I love preparing for it. I love going. I've been to every one since I've been living in Hanson. I absolutely I find it a great time to be able to meet people you haven't seen in a while, shake hands with some people, get to hang out and get to really get an understanding of what's going on in the town. So I thoroughly enjoy it. So I wouldn't change it in terms of just doing away with it. I would never do that. I think that we do have to focus on getting more people there. So childcare is the #1 thing that we've been trying to work on for a very long time to get some volunteers to do that. And we have to find a way to get childcare there. The other thing is that Mondays at 7 o'clock, 7:30 is very tough for people. It's right in a work day. So we may want to consider either making it a little bit earlier or just moving the day. I don't know what that would look like, but if we wanted to get people there, that might be a possibility. But I think that you genuinely would get more people there if you had strong childcare. But I love town meeting. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to meet people.
Wes?
And since 1972, I think it's always been a running joke. Will we get the quorum? But we always do. One way or another, we get the quorum. And I think it's easier to get the quorum today than it was before. Personally, I just hate the idea that sooner or later, and I hope it doesn't even come, that we will no longer be a democracy. We will be representative government, like, say, Braintree or something, and we will elect a few representatives from our precincts, and they will go and vote for us, and that just puts us at that extra remove. I think the four of us are simply strong proponents of town meeting. Right. I must say, it's not the best show in town anymore, although this last town meeting had a couple lovely articles that were great fun to be part of. But, well, at any rate, I hope Joe's childcare is about the only thing that I can think. I don't advocate changing the day. I know once upon a time we really tried to go to weekends, which it seemed there was even less support for a weekend than a weeknight. So, right.
Okay, well, I'm going to ring right back in and throw this right back at you, Wes. Hanson has a town administrator with a Board of Selectmen form of government. Would you ever be in favor of having a town manager versus an administrator? A lot of people in town think the town administrator is the town manager. There is a difference. The town administrator works for the Board of Selectmen, gets the marching orders. Would you ever be in favor of a town manager?
It's not something I've considered. I think at this point, as long as if we're going to have a Board of Selectmen, then I think the Board of Selectmen should be making the decisions, and whoever works for them carries out the decisions they make. That is my guess at this point. If a town manager is the one who makes the decisions and then we just rubber stamp, or someone rubber stamps, once again, I think the voters are losing that. The voters are losing the chance to be part of the process. So I'm not sure I'm against it. I have not studied it. I don't know at this point what I really think.
Thank you. Don?
No, I totally am against having a town manager in the town of Hanson. I've seen other things work in other towns and it doesn't work out. I think it's great that the selectmen do have the power to control the manager, because sometimes when a person comes in being from out of town or some other state, and they're going to be the town manager, they've got their own rules and regulations to run the town, and they don't know the town. And the administrator, when he's working for the town, has 5 selectmen that he can go and get answers from. And I think that's a great way to be for a town. So I strongly disagree in having a town manager. I'd rather have the administrator.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, another great question. Pembroke actually just had that on their town meeting, this past town meeting, and they went from a town administrator to a town manager. And I'm interested to see what that's going to look like. Personally, I believe that a town administrator works well for us. One of the things that makes Hanson special and this setup that we have be special is that the Board of Selectmen is the CEO of the town. They're the ones that represent the people. They get voted in off the confidence of the folks that put their name in the ring, and you get to represent their best interests. And you live in the town, you're here in the town, you know what's going on in the town. A town manager may not live here. You might get lucky, like in Whitman, where you get someone that actually lives there, but the idea is that that's not always going to be the case. So you want to be mindful that if you change the structure, you might have unintended consequences that you're not really so sure about. But Pembroke's going to be a pretty interesting example to see what that transition is going to look like. But I like our current arrangement. I think it's important.
Matt?
Yeah, I agree with the other 3 gentlemen here at the table, where I don't think it would be wise for the town of Hanson to move in that direction at this time.
Okay. This is a completely off-the-wall question, but it's happening in many towns, and someone called it in, and that's why it's here. Plastic bags seem to be becoming a problem at Shaw's or Stop and Shop or Publix or whatever market uses them. They're around town. They're all over the place. They're hurting the environment. Would any of you ever be in favor of banning plastic bags in the town of Hanson? This can be a yes or no question if you want. Wes has got his hands up. Have at it, Wes.
No, very simply, yes. And I do think they are the miracles of modern chemistry, what a plastic bag can carry as opposed to a paper bag. But there is no question in my mind. I think we've seen a couple scary specials in our life when the human race is gone, and 5 centuries from now, the plastic bags will still be flying around, you know, suffocating birds. Or something. Yeah. No, I would be the first one to say I think plastic bags, their time, they've outlived their usefulness. They're going to outlive everything else.
Matt.
I agree. It's time to move forward, but at the same time, too, we need to make sure that we have input from our businesses here in town, and just make sure that the transition is going to be as smooth as possible. And I would also advocate for removing polystyrene, the styrofoam cups that we get at all the coffee shops, and go towards paper. I already know that Dunkin' Donuts is moving in that direction as a corporation. I hope that the franchises here in Hanson would also adopt that policy as well.
Joe.
Yeah, it's a tough question. Short answer is yes, I'd love to be able to do that. I think that the plastic bags, in Wes's point, are the tumbleweeds of the future. So we got to be mindful that those are going to outlive us well beyond our years. I think that we have to put together a sustainable plan to help incentivize folks to move towards that. I like the ability for people to make decisions based off of their own, intellect and all that. And I don't think it's government's place to necessarily put restrictions on people. However, I am in 100% agreement that we should be moving towards more biodegradable resources, like moving away from styrofoam. I think it's something we need to do, as well as plastic. It's not a great resource, and I'd like to be able to work with businesses, companies, schools to make sure that we remove that from Hanson if we can, and I'd like to be able to incentivize that.
Dawn.
I agree with all 3 members that just spoke. I think we ought to do away with the plastic bags. Claire and I, when we go shopping, we've got our own little bag we carry in with us and carry out our products from any store that we go to. I think it's going to ruin the country because plastic will not deteriorate, and you can't bury it, and you're not supposed to burn anymore, and it's terrible that they have the plastic bags. I agree with everybody here. It's something that's ruining the environment, especially out in the oceans where it's collecting, and there's no way to get rid of it.
Well, I'm glad all 4 of you, because I'm all in with the same thing that you guys are talking about. My wife sends me to the store, and she's got even a thermal bag. I never knew it even existed. She said, "Oh, this is for the cold stuff." I'm like, "I live a quarter of a mile away, honey. It's not going to be a big deal." But
they do have paper bags there too.
Yes, yes. Okay. Well, it's hard to believe that we're coming to the end of it, and I need to give everybody time to give their closing statement. I think the town of Hanson is very, very fortunate to have the 4 of you as candidates. I think you've answered a ton of questions tonight. I think you've all done a good job. I think every one of you has Hanson in your best interest. And I'm proud to even be here and say I'm a resident standing in front of the 4 of you, because I'm proud of the 4 of you. I really am. It's a shame that all 4 of you couldn't win. Saturday is election day. The polls do open at Hanson Middle at 10 o'clock. They close at 5 o'clock. Okay? We had a very good forum. I hope that the viewers that are watching have got a much better view of what the candidates are, where they stand on the issues, how they're going to move the great town of Hanson forward. It's been fabulous. We started with opening statements, and I've got the order for the closing statements. So, Wes, why should the town of Hanson elect Wes Bloss? Tell these people.
Can I use my teacher voice?
Yes.
Yes. Well, then I think we all have a responsibility to this town. If you've lived here 67 years, maybe you have a bigger responsibility. If you've lived here, I won't ask Dawn, even a bigger responsibility.
That's not fair.
That's not fair. We have a responsibility to give back, and that is literally the extent of my agenda, to give back. I've waited a long time to give back. But then I would use my teacher voice and simply say, I think all of us, if this is an opportunity to say, I think that people should start reconsidering trash. I think people should start considering bringing their bags to Shaw's. I think we as a citizenry should start taking that responsibility and saying there are many volunteer positions that are unfilled in this town right now, many committees that have vacancies. Take the responsibility. Give it a try. I'm biting my fingernails and scared to death to be here. It's like, oh, this is very scary stuff. I only talk to 12-year-olds. So this is something new, but it's like, you know what? Just step up and give it a try. And I think we can all find that in our hearts to do.
Wes, thank you. Joe.
Yeah, again, just thank you for putting this together. Thank you to WHCA. Thank you to the folks here. And thank you for you at home for taking the time to be with us here tonight. I hope it was informative and it gives you something to think about come May 19th. I really am genuinely here for the town of Hanson and the folks that reside in it. I really have tried from day one to put myself in a position to just understand the goings-on of the town, the inner workings of it, and a lot of the themes that have been happening over the past decade, really. I really feel like I can represent the folks here really well. I could bring people together and continue on where we left off. We have plenty of projects that really kind of need to be worked on. Complete streets, the TIP projects, the schools, the transfer station, everything we talked about here tonight. Not only are they important, but we got to make sure that we don't forget about the folks on fixed income. They really do matter, and we try a lot for the kids, but we've got to worry about the kids on fixed income. We got to worry about the families. We really got to make sure that we do right by them. So, I really hope that I've earned your vote on May 19th, and I will see you on Saturday. And thank you, folks, again for being here. Appreciate it.
Mr. Howard.
My 10 years here, I'm on the Old Colony Planning in Brockton. I'm on the Plymouth County Central Water Division, which is part of Mont Ponset, which controls water that Brockton takes. I'm on the Mont Ponset Working Group because of the fact that we have land on Mont Ponset Pond, West Mont Ponset Pond. I also work in conjunction with the Plymouth County Mosquito Control, and I've enjoyed working for Hanson for the past 10 years. I love working here. It's a bedroom community, and I think the best of everything works out for Hanson. I enjoy working here, and I hope that everybody will think about me when they vote on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt.
Sure. It has been a pleasure over the last few months to be meeting with different department heads and chatting with different families throughout our community. And I would hope that on May 19th that you would consider me as I hope to bring a new direction, a new voice to Hanson, a younger perspective, so we can stay competitive with our surrounding communities. And as we move forward, I hope that we can be more sustainable, as Wes was saying, and kind of bring that direction. But at the same time, make sure we preserve our heritage here in Hanson, because we are a very unique community, and I hope that we can find that balance of bringing a new age, but also preserving our history here in Hanson. So thank you.
Well, I want to thank all four of you again. The town is very fortunate to have all four of you, and I'm glad we all agree on one thing: no plastic bags. So we maybe should bring that up as I think it's called a citizen's petition or something at town meeting for next year. It's something we need to think about because it is a big thing. So as I said, we have 4 candidates. Only 2 are going to be elected. Thank you all for coming and giving the residents of Hanson the opportunity to have a choice. Again, voting is the 19th at Hanson Middle School. It starts at 10 o'clock in the morning. It ends at 5 o'clock. If you'd like the results, usually about 5 past 5 or 10 past 5, the clerk comes out and gives us the results. So, on behalf of Whitman Hanson Community Access, Kevin Tocci, Ryan Tully, Paul Watson, Amy Broderick, and the rest of the production team here, my name is Bob Hayes, and I'd like to thank you all for watching this production, and stay tuned, there's more to come.